If you are anywhere close to writing an offer on a Vancouver condo in the next 30 days, make sure you stick around until the end of this video because I'm going to save some of you from making a six-figure mistake. Last year I made a video on the Vancouver condos to avoid. 21,000 of you watched it and it became my most viewed warning of the entire year. And from those videos, I had real Vancouver buyers email me with the buildings they were about to put offers on, and I was able to tell them no on more than one occasion, which is honestly the entire reason I made these videos in the first place. But here is the thing, that was last year and this is 2026, and in the 10 months since that original video went live, the data on Vancouver condos has not gotten better, it has gotten materially worse. And the playbook from last year does not work anymore. The categories of buildings I told you to avoid last year are still bad, but now there are new categories that are worse, and there are old categories that have moved from caution into honestly dangerous territory. So I'm back making this video again because the spread between a great Vancouver condo buy in 2026 and a six-figure regret has never been wider than it is right now, and the difference between which side of that spread you land on comes down to about 30 minutes of due diligence and one phone call with somebody who actually reads buildings for a living. Let me show you what exactly has changed. The Vancouver condo market in 2026 is looking at sales levels we have not seen since the 90s, with a composite benchmark price down nearly 7% year over year. BC mortgage delinquencies are climbing while the national rate has stabilized, with British Columbia and Ontario specifically continuing to move in the wrong direction per Canadian Bankers Association reporting. Vancouver new lease rents have dropped 3.6% year over year in the first quarter of 2026, which means the rental income cheat code that most condo investors were leaning on to make their numbers work has actually compressed. And there are now a record 204,000 rental units under construction across Canada, which is an 8.2% of the entire existing rental stock, which means even if rents do not drop further, they cannot meaningfully rise because the supply pipeline is just so overwhelming. This is the macro picture you are walking into in 2026, and last year was a warning about specific buildings. This year, it's a rescue mission about specific categories of buildings that have just become much more dangerous because of those macro changes. Now, here's what actually means for you in dollars if you get this wrong. If you buy the wrong Vancouver condo this spring, you are not looking at a soft landing. You're looking at a building where the Strata Corporation is one assessment letter away from a $50,000 bill that lands in your mailbox 6 months after closing. You're looking at a unit that the bank's appraiser is going to come in low on at completion, which can blow up your financing on a pre-sale you signed at the peak prices of 2022. You're looking at a rental market where the income that was supposed to subsidize your carrying costs has structurally compressed, and you are looking at a buyer pool for resale that is compressed alongside the rental market. So with that, let's get into the traps right now. Trap number one is buildings from the leaky condo era. Vancouver had a major envelope crisis from roughly 1985 to the year 2000, and the buildings of that era were built with face-sealed stucco, no rain screen behind the cladding, and detailed by people who had never actually tried to keep British Columbia rain out of a wood frame box for 30 years. The result was the leaky condo crisis, which bankrupted a generation of Vancouver strata corporations and cost owners hundreds of thousands of dollars in special assessments. The scale of this was massive and actually almost bankrupt the city of Delta. Roughly 45% of all strata units built in BC between 1985 and 2000 had envelope leak problems. Some of those buildings have gone through one envelope repair cycle already in the late 1990s and 2000s. The buildings that did the first repair properly with full rain screen and proper waterproofing are now in pretty good shape. The buildings that did a partial repair, a budget repair, or no repair at all are now in their second envelope cycle, and the second cycle is significantly more expensive than the first. For my 11 years in construction, I can tell you the depreciation reports I'm pulling on these buildings show envelope projects quoted at $500,000 to upwards of $1 million. Strata fees that look very, very low on the listing because the strata has been deferring the work, and that is something you want to avoid. And contingency reserve funds sitting under $200,000, which is obviously not enough to cover a single envelope cycle, let alone the secondary work that comes with it. The Masters of Special Assessment is incoming inside 24 months, and here's the thing that compounds this in 2026 specifically. BC consumer insolvencies on a 12-month rolling basis are now at unprecedented levels, the highest in recorded history of the data per the Office of the Superintendent of Bankruptcy, which means when the special assessment hits and you get that ladder for $50,000 in your mailbox, half of your neighbors cannot pay it. The building defers the work and the building gets materially worse. What to look for when you tour these buildings is honestly pretty simple. You walk the perimeter of the building before you go inside. Look at the base of each level for a horizontal metal flashing line, which is the visual signature of a proper rain screen system. If you do not see that flashing on a building from the 1985 to 2000 era, the building has not been properly rain screened, which means it is operating on the original face sealed stucco system. Look for staining at window heads, look for paint blistering at the soffit to fascia transition, and look for any visible repair patches in the stucco that do not match the surrounding finish. These are signs that the building has had water intrusion events that may or may not have been properly addressed. And then go pull the Form B, pull the depreciation report, and check the contingency reserve fund balance against the upcoming envelope work line item. If the gap is over $200,000 and the timeline for the work is under 3 years, you're not buying a condo, you're buying a special assessment with a unit attached to it. Pass on that building and walk away. Trap number 2 is investor-heavy Burnaby Metrotown towers and any building anywhere in Metro Vancouver where more than half the units were sold to investors during the 2021 to 2023 pre-sale craze. This is honestly the trap that has changed the most since last year. Last year I told you to be cautious of investor-heavy towers because the rental income math was getting tight. This year I'm telling you to effectively avoid them completely because the math has gone from tight to negative. National rental vacancy rate just hit 5.1% per CMHC, and that is the 9th straight quarter of increases. There are a record 240,000 rental units under construction in Canada right now, which is 8.2% of the entire existing rental stock. In Vancouver specifically, new lease rents dropped 3.6% year over year in the first quarter of 2026 per Yardi, and the investor cash flow math that justified those Metrotown purchases at $1,500 a square foot in 2022 just does not work anymore. Not even close, which means those investors are listing their units, which means a Metrotown tower with 200 units suddenly has 35 active listings competing on the same MLS page at the exact same time. The appraiser comes in low on those comparables because he knows there's going to be distressed sales, and when your financing falls apart at completion if you were the buyer trying to close on one of those units. There's a second order effect here that nobody in the Vancouver real estate community is talking about. Non-permanent residents, meaning international students, temporary foreign workers, and the people who actually fill investor-owned units as renters are down 76% from the 2024 admission peak as per Statistics Canada. So even if rent drops compress at some point, the actual demand for these units is a step function lower than it was 18 months ago. The investor who bought a Metrotown one bedroom at $1,500 a foot in 2022, qualifying on a 2.7% variable rate with a $3,500 a month rental projection, is now staring at a rate that could be as high as 5%, a $3,100 a month achievable rent, and a unit value below what they paid for it. That investor is your competition on the resale shelf. What to look for when you tour one of these high density towers or any investor heavy building is honestly pretty simple. Ask the listing agent directly what percentage of the building is owner occupied versus rented. The Form B will not always tell you this clearly, but the listing agent should have an idea. If the answer is below 60% owner occupied, the building is investor heavy and the resale market is going to be fundamentally tougher than the listing photos suggest. Pull the rental comps on the building over the past 12 months from your realtor as well. If the trend is down 3 to 6% year over year, the income math for any new buyer in that building does not work. And look at the floor plan layouts. This is huge. If the building is dominated by 500 to 600 square foot bedrooms and studios, it was purpose built for the investor rental market, not the owner occupier market, which means your future buyer pool is going to be dominated by the same investors who are currently selling. And that is a structurally weak buyer pool to be selling into. Trap number 3 is downtown glass towers that started construction in those same years of 2021 to 2023 at around that $1,500 and more square foot evaluation. These are the buildings where the peak price pre-sale buyers are now staring down a completion appraisal that is $200,000 to $300,000 under their original contract price. And the financing rules at completion are tighter than they were at signing. The rental market cannot rescue them because of the supply tsunami and the non-permanent residence collapse I just walked you through. So they are walking away from deposits, or they are being sued by developers for the resale price difference, or they are completing into a unit that is worth less than what they owe. This is honestly the part most buyers do not understand about pre-sale completion math in 2026. And let me show you the worked example here. You bought a pre-sale unit downtown in 2022 at $1,500 a square foot. A 700 square foot unit, so your contract price was $1,050,000. You put down 10% at signing, which is $105,000, with the balance due at completion in 2026. The building completes this year, and the bank's appraiser comes in at $1,200 a square foot, which I think is actually generous given the current market, putting the appraisal value at $840,000. The bank will lend on the appraised value, not the contract price. So they will lend you 80% of $840,000, which is $672,000. Your contract requires you to come up with the remaining $945,000 at completion. $672,000 from the bank, your $105,000 deposit, and the rest in cash. That rest is $168,000 in cash that you need to find on closing day. If you cannot find it, you walk away from your deposit, or you go into financing default, or you try to assign the contract to somebody else at a loss, but developers are also not wanting to do that, and if they are, there's a penalty with that as well. The thing I want you to take away from this category is that we are now in a Vancouver market where pre-sale buyers can complete on units that are worth meaningfully less than what they signed for. That is a level of market dysfunction that should fundamentally change how you read every pre-sale assignment listing in this city. Trap number 4 is pre-sale assignments where the developer has not yet broken ground. The hole has not been dug and there is no construction insurance in place. No project financing milestones has been hit, and there is no recourse for you, the buyer, if the developer files for protection. This is one of the most asymmetric risks in Vancouver real estate right now. Unsold developer inventory is at record highs across BC, and BC consumer insolvencies are in unprecedented territory. And Vancouver lawyers are now going on CTV News on the record advising buyers to walk away from pre-sale contracts and declare bankruptcy if necessary. This is not a TikTok rumor. This is a Vancouver real estate lawyer on the local news telling buyers their best legal option is bankruptcy. The assignment market for these unbroken ground projects is essentially zero right now, as buyers will not touch them because the development risk is way too high. Banks will not finance them because there is no construction insurance protection, and your deposit is sitting in a trust account watching the project clock run out. If somebody is trying to assign you a pre-sale unit in a building where they have not poured the foundation yet, my answer is no before you tell me the price. And the developer litigation risk on these contracts is asymmetric in a way most buyers do not understand. If the developer cancels the project, your deposit comes back eventually, maybe after a fight after the project's lender goes through the receivership process. But if you cancel the contract, the developer can sue you for the difference between your original contract price and the eventual resale price of the unit. And right now, those resale prices are below their original contract values across the entire city. So the buyer of an unbroken ground pre-sale is honestly in the worst possible position, locked into a contract above market value with no working assignment market to exit through, with a developer whose financial conditions you cannot verify. Trap number 5 is strata corporations with a contingency reserve fund balance under $200,000, where the depreciation report is flagging envelope or roof work in the next 3 to 5 years. This is honestly part of the due diligence that gets skipped very regularly on the purchase in this city, because the focus is always on price and rate and how it looks on the open house, when honestly the actual ticking time bomb in Vancouver are condos, where the gap between what the depreciation report says the building needs in the next 5 years and what the strata corporation has actually saved up for it. The Form B will tell you the CRF balance in one number, the depreciation report and the strata documents will tell you the upcoming work in the next section. And you got to make sure to subtract one from the other before you write any offer. If the gap is over $200,000 and the timeline on that work is under 3 years, you are not buying a condo, you are buying a special assessment with a unit attached to it. Let me show you a real example. A typical mid-rise wood frame Vancouver building, 60 units listed at $650,000 for a 1-bedroom. The Form B shows a CRF balance of $120,000 and the depreciation report shows envelope work of $800,000 projected for year 2 and a roof replacement of $250,000 projected for year 3. The total upcoming work is $1,050,000. The CRF has $120,000 and the gap is $930,000. Divided across 60 units, that is roughly $15,500 per unit per project. So you're looking at a $15,000 special assessment in year 2 and another $5,000 assessment in year 3 on top of any other monthly strata fee increases if that project even budgets out correctly. If the strata cannot get 60 owners to vote the fund of the work gets deferred and the building deteriorates further and you eventually face an even bigger assessment down the road. Trap number 6 is buildings with active or pending litigation, whether it's lawsuits against the original developer over deficiencies or between the strata and a contractor or consultant, or lawsuits between 2 owners that have escalated into a strata-wide claim. Litigation does several things to a Vancouver condo building that you need to understand before you buy into it. First, litigation makes a building uninsurable in the eyes of certain insurance carriers, which means strata insurance premiums can double at the next renewal, and which means the strata operating budget gets squeezed and strata fees go up at the next AGM. Second, litigation makes a unit harder to mortgage at certain lenders because some banks flat out exclude litigated buildings from their approval matrix, which shrinks the future buyer pool for your unit when you eventually go to sell. Third, litigation piles legal fees on top of the strata budget, and a 2-year deficiency lawsuit can add 15 to 30% to the building's annual operating budget in legal fees alone. Fourth, the depreciation report on a litigated building often gets paused or defunded because nobody on the strata wants to commit capital to projects while the lawsuit defines a financial position. Fortunately, we do have a law here in BC that it is mandatory, but things could get deferred if it is stretched out. So you are buying a building where the insurance is unstable, the lender pool is shrinking, and the operating budget is bleeding legal fees, and the capital plan is on hold. None of that is going to be on the listing description. The Form B will disclose the litigation, but most listing agents will not bring it in the conversation at the open house. Make sure that you ask every single time. Ask the listing agent directly whether there is any active or pending litigation involving the strata corporation, and ask them to point you to the disclosure section of the Form B. If they are uncomfortable answering, if they brushed off the question, or if they tell you to ask the strata manager, that is your sign to possibly walk out the elevator and skip the unit entirely. The downstream effects of strata litigation are slow, but they compound. You will not feel the pain in year 1. You will feel the pain in year 3 when the insurance renewals triples, the strata fees spike, and the bank passes on your financing, or even worse, if it's with a developer and it is deemed that the strata is responsible for repairs, it can cost you in special levies down the road. So make sure you understand the litigation status of every building you tour before you sign anything.